Welcome to Global Investment Voice, your premier podcast for diving deep into the world of investment migration. Are you dreaming of a second or third passport? Then join us as we traverse the globe, exploring the ins and outs of the U.S. EB-5 Immigrant Investor Visa, uncover the secrets of golden visas, and delve into the many residency and citizenship by investment programs. Each episode is packed with exclusive insights from top industry experts. Whether you're an investor, developer, or a visionary entrepreneur, we're here to guide you through the complexities of global investment migration. And who better to navigate this journey with than your hosts, the dynamic legal duo of this industry, Mona Shah and Rebecca Singh. Plus, hear directly from a lineup of global investment migration leaders. So, buckle up and tune in to Global Investment Voice, where your global investment journey begins and expands.
Hey, Rebecca, what a tumultuous time it is in this industry right now.
Oh, I know. It's so much going on. I think the Middle East. I mean, first we started with Russia, Ukraine. Now we're in the Middle East. Do you know what's going on?
Well, Sam from BLS Global is back. And before we really get into EB-5, we did want to hear from him directly. We really want to know what running a global investment and mobility business is like right now.
Hi, Mona. Hi, Rebecca. Absolutely busy. This Q1 of 2026 has been the most busiest, I think, since the last 10 years. So,
oh, wow.
Crazy period. So much as is happening at the moment.
Well, we're only a week or 2 weeks into the war, a week and a half into the war. Has that shaped what clients are asking for? Are you seeing anything?
Absolutely. We're seeing a significant uptake, especially from Middle East, Europe, Latin America, India, everyone's that's been looking at residency and citizenship programs for 2026. Really, with this war, it's accelerated inquiries and people are actually making more decisions than ever before. So definitely it's, again, after what's happened with Ukraine, a lot of Russians went into places like Middle East, got a lot of second citizenship. Same thing's happening again. Yes.
Yeah. Where are you seeing all these investors looking for the residency or citizenship by investment programs? Where are they going?
That's a very good question. So it's always US for some reason. I don't know. There's always an appetite for the US, especially from India, Middle East, and the UK. And to be honest, there's a lot of immigrants in the UK that are also doing second passports. There's various, even Turkey, there's always a demand. So from the jurisdictions we cover, I would say Middle East, Europe, Latin America, and India. There's still a big demand from those jurisdictions.
Very interesting. There's just so much variety in the US. I suppose there's something for everyone.
Wow.
Yeah, but did you guys think that with the war that has started, has it deterred anyone from coming into the US?
Yeah, like anti-American sentiment. Sam, are you seeing that?
You do have people that are in favor of the current government. You do get people that are very upset, but they know with America, there's always a new government administration after 4 years. So they will just pause their plan. So if they're set on going to the US, they will definitely go to the US in some kind of capacity, but they will just pause their plan. But there's still a demand and an appetite for the US.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's good.
It'll keep you guys busy, I guess, especially.
Right. Well, I know you've been speaking with lots of prospective EB-5 investors because you keep bombarding us with questions.
Oh, gosh, the amount of questions that we get from investors. I have to send you guys messages after messages.
Well, we thought we would do something different today.
Yes.
Instead of us ask you questions, we thought we can turn the tables.
You are doing me a massive favor, and it's very good for the mass audience because a lot of the times it's similar questions, but some of these questions are so creative and they're beyond my capacity. So we do need an expert.
I agree. After 15 years, I mean, some of the questions you ask us, I'm like, that's new.
Yeah. I have to say, I am impressed with some of the latest investors. They really are reading the PPM and they're reading the boilerplate stuff and they're asking questions, Rebecca. I mean, it's like...
Yeah, so we have sophisticated investors and that's what they should be, sophisticated investors coming in under the EB-5 program.
A lot of them are getting access to a lot of these online platforms, right? Like ChatGPT, they're uploading these PPMs and it's educating them, but it still doesn't give them the final solution because we've been through the process, right? In terms of successful projects, completions, and you've seen, you've gone through this case study. So whatever happens, you go through these PPMs, you still need the experts to go through them.
Absolutely. And Sam, I cannot tell you how many times one of our clients has come back and said, hey, Claude said this. And I said, well, Claude is wrong. I'm sorry, but Claude is wrong there.
Picks up a lot of misinformation.
All right, go ahead. Fire away.
Look, I need to fire away because this is like, it's really good for the listeners. And so they can, when they ask me the questions, they're going to actually hear it from the experts. So one of the major questions I get from investors are, if a project is fully built and operational, can my EB-5 petition still be accepted?
Good question. Well, it's not an automatic no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the details matter, right, Mona? I mean, the project documents.
Yeah. Do the project documents allow it? Is there a temporary or there's a final CO? What's the CO again, Rebecca?
Yep. So that's a certificate of occupancy. So temporary means that they're pretty much finished buildings. Sometimes they may host, if it's a hotel, for instance, they might have some customers that are in, and maybe there's parts of the hotel that need finishing, maybe like the stores underneath. But the final is that it's fully operational.
But in their mind, they're thinking my EB-5 is used to complete a project. Isn't that what EB-5 is there for?
Again, if the projects allow it, if the right sort of wording is in the project, then yes, you can use it even after the project has been completed. But it's not the same for every project. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because it's really important to show how are the funds being used.
Yeah.
So you can't just accept the funds and then it's just sitting in the NC account or the JC account. You have to, from the JC account, how is it being expended? Is it being expended on job creating expenditures? So I think that's going to be the important part in looking at a project and seeing, okay, even though they're built operational, what other costs are there to this project?
And the interesting thing here, Sam, is that as people find out, with 526 might get approved. It's the 829 where there may be an issue.
Yes.
Because at that point, when you're looking at the expenditures, you're looking and you're seeing and wait a minute, what is this? And USCIS does this all the time. They will go through line by line, item by item. They will say, no, this is not included, that is not included. And if they start disallowing a number of areas, then guess what? Somebody doesn't get enough jobs and they don't get their final green card.
Yep. So those final investors will have to pay attention.
USCIS does audit after a project's been completed. So they do more checks, do they? Rigorous checks?
So they can go and do site visits and they should be, rather than giving us RFEs or Noids saying that they've looked on Google. Right? So yes, they do take a look into the project, see where they are. But a lot of times they come up with the fact that the project isn't even started. That's where we get a lot of issues of what stage the project is in.
Yeah, but you're talking about the audit, how the money is spent. Yeah, they do that, of course. Now it's mandatory for there to be every regional center to be audited. We don't know when and where. You could just be a random regional center and it's just brought up, but all regional centers will be audited. And that's under the new law, under the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act. That wasn't there before. That's new.
No, that's good. So I want to move on to another question. I know you guys can keep on going on. Okay. And I really need your help because all the time I speak to the investors, they think they can do their source of funds. Yes, I'm doing EB-5. I'm preparing my source of funds.
Yeah, ChatGPT is helping them.
I'm like, okay, your definition of preparation of source of fund is completely heard and seen. And they think, okay, I have till September. Why am I being rushed to retain an attorney? Please help me with this, because they don't understand the importance and why it's so important to retain an attorney now, especially for the source of funds.
Well, actually, I think we can divide this into two. First of all, we can divide it into India and Chinese born investors, and then perhaps the rest of the world. Rebecca, why don't you take the first part?
Yeah. So it's important for Indian and Chinese investors just because there is an imminent backlog approaching.
Oh, wait. Haven't we been talking about this for months?
But now we are in March. We are in March of 2026. It's got to be coming. The visa bulletin has not arrived, so I'm not sure by the time this is out where we'll stand. But I think you have to prepare. Indian and Chinese investors, remember, it's based on country of birth, have to prepare now, get this in, especially if you're in the US. If you want to file your adjustment of status concurrently, this is the opportunity to get it done.
So what you're saying is that the current slow, and I mean slow, adjudication of cases is giving a false impression?
Yes.
I'll tell you, Sam, right now, our bet, and again, this is just us guessing, our bet is that rural is going to go into backlog before TEA, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because, and it's not because of the numbers, it's because that it's only rural which seems to be getting into any adjudications right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another topic we'll get into in a bit. But I think the issue is that because there was such a huge backlog pre-RIA, that Indian and Chinese investors were so nervous that the rural, because it was priority processing and it had 20% of the visa count versus high unemployment or TEA areas where they had 10%, everyone went after those visas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So basically, they're all in one area. So there's going to be issues coming up. Actually, it's interesting. It may just be that non-TEA ends up being faster, but that's for a future topic. Going away from Indian and Chinese-born investors, Rebecca, the rest of the world. I can imagine somebody who's born in Turkey or something saying, why do I have to rush now? But I think, Sam, September is closer than it looks.
Yeah. And for those who don't know why we keep talking about September of 2026, even though the program is expiring in 2027, there is a part in the regulation or in the act, the RIA 2022, that stated that they were only going to grandfather petitions if they were filed prior to September 30th of 2026.
Yeah, nobody understands why we have a whole year of nothing. And it could possibly be that shifts, that changes. Mm-hmm. But at this point, that's what's in the law. It's crazy to think about it, but we don't understand why they did that. But and what does grandfathering mean? It could mean that the higher amount would be later. Nobody really understands because that part needs to be clarified, that section.
And then just going back to what you said, Sam, like Mona said, September is closer than we think. And it does take time to, like you said, transfer funds, it is a lot of in-depth reviewing of your statements and going back and forth. So it does take time. So I think all investors, if you're ready or thinking about it, I think it's the time now.
Yeah, we can give you an example. We had somebody who was ready to file last October, and we are in March, and they wanted to refinance and they wanted to take money from a business and then from a loan. None of them were working out, and it's taken months to be able to just finalize the source.
No, that's true. And everyone thinks like, oh, I'll just send everything over to the attorney in September. They will file. There's so much work that goes in.
Please don't. Please do not do that.
Yeah. It's going to be a very costly mistake if you leave this to the very end and then we're rushing. And then we've experienced all the mistakes of rush filings. And believe you me, there's lots of them. And unfortunately, there are less experienced attorneys out there because some of the newer attorneys who are out haven't experienced what's happened previously. And there are mistakes being made.
No, exactly. So if you think about it, we're already in March. We've got this turmoil with everything's going on. Then it's going to be April. Sooner or later, you realize it's the holiday period. People start putting their feet up, going on holiday. June, July, and then September. That's like crazy. So I keep on telling them, look, whatever you need your source of funds. It's got to be strong, and then you're in a much better position to choose the right project. So I want to move on to another question. A lot of people think, well, hold on, I'm in the US. I've already spent nearly $1 million or 800,000. How can I not use that money to make it into an EB-5? And can I not just use that money for EB-5, or what can be done? Because they've spent nearly $1 million or 800,000. They just feel, what should I do?
Well, again, this is a yes and a no answer, and there's a lot of misconceptions in this area. But first of all, it depends. What have they spent it on? If you've bought a house for $1 million or 800, then that's not going to create any jobs. You have to remember it's a job creating program.
Yeah, well, we get this, Sam, a lot with E2 investors in the US already. Right. Yeah, and they will say, well, I can easily convert this into EB-5. And no, because a lot of times, they might transfer funds abroad. It might be coming from another business account. That will not work for USCIS unless it's a sole proprietorship. So you're running into questions about how the money is being transferred. Can you source enough? Can you go far back and get bank statements? So it's a lot to think about just on the job creation expenditures on the project, but how did you actually bring that cash in the first place?
Right. But there have been many E2s that we have successfully transferred to EB-5 too. again, it depends on how you structure it initially.
And I think it's like once they actually went for the E2, if they actually went to the right advisor or an immigration firm and they've said, look, my purpose is to get a green card, I can start with an E2 to an EB-5.
Mm-hmm.
And if the immigration attorney actually gave them a good path, then this all would have been documented, right? It would really help them, just not.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there's again, it's all about advice as well. It depends on the business. Some businesses work really well as an E2 because you don't have that 10 job requirement. You know, it's very successful if you have 4 employees and 2 part-time employees, but not when you have 10 full-time employees. So it really depends on so many factors.
Yeah.
I think the amount too, because a lot of clients will spend maybe 200 at the most, 250, and can get away with an E2, but can you really spend 800,000 on the business as well?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We have many businesses where you just can't spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Now, on a lot of people I speak to, they're like, well, yes, I'm doing EB-5. I've started the process. I'm like, okay, that's great. Who did you retain as an attorney? No, I haven't. I mean, but they say, I've started. What do you mean you started? Well, I started selling my property. I'm like, that's not starting an EB-5. That's just showing us an indication. So a lot of people say, I'm selling my property, showing the sale should be sufficient for source of funds. Is that correct? Is that sale going to be good enough for their source of funds?
Rebecca, this is your area. Go ahead.
I'm going to say no. No, a lot more documentation is needed. And they do go into, how did you get the funds? You need the initial seed funds, and it has to be lawful funds to purchase the property. So you have to go back in time as well. Because I know we have clients, and a lot of our Indian clients as well, when they have like property that's inherited over years, we still have to document how you had lawful possession. So, and then, we get this common question too with a lot of clients who are like, oh, my tax returns as well are good enough. No, that just shows you paid taxes, but on what?
Actually, we find that from our British clients because they pay taxes. They're like, look, we pay lots of taxes. That's good enough.
Yeah. Or I earned this much amount of money.
Yeah.
Of course I have this. And I was like, well, you do, but you do spend that money as well. So USCIS wants to actually see that, have you saved those funds? Where are they being saved? Because a lot of clients don't think, I went into a brokerage account, or, I did purchase a property. Now, like you said, you have to sell that property. So tax returns also is not enough.
Oh, yeah. And Sam, don't forget the famous cases of sales of property in places like India, where what the sale price is and what's written for tax purposes are 2 completely different amounts. Yeah.
I think we've had a lot of clients who have asked us before selling, and then they've ended up not doing that because they're like, there's no way.
Yeah.
But that's why I keep on telling them, like, there's many other paths. So speak to an expert, just don't think it's just on the back of the property sale. There's many other paths, which we want to talk about. There's a lot of things, but I want to go into this because, we're getting a lot of inquiries from the US. I guess they're really waking up to the deadline of this grandfathering you talked about earlier. And a lot of them are on H-1B visas. And the first thing they're like, oh, are you looking at a project? I want rural straight away. I'm like, thank you. Okay, I got it. What for?
We've been dissecting this. This is obviously, we're getting this as well. And I'm not going to say developers who have only rural projects are going to jump up and down, but it's not necessarily the project at this point. Rural is faster, without a doubt, right now. The priority processing that USCIS is doing, it means that we are getting rural cases back in 8 to 12 months.
Well,
No?
I beg to differ. Yeah, I mean, I think that it was first being prioritized, but then I think USCIS just got chaotic. I would say probably end of 24, beginning of 25.
It's still taking about a year, Rebecca.
Yeah, but I feel like we were getting TEA cases in at the same time as getting rural.
Yeah.
So I don't think they kind of got lost on what they were doing and how they were adjudicating the cases.
That's true. Right now, it is a little weird, but they're also doing something else. Not just so. Even if you go into rural, I think what are they? They just announced it. They're going back to that. Is it that first in, first out approach, Rebecca?
Yeah. So they just came out with this new inventory management system. So now there used to be visa availability approach, and that was due to the backlog. So yeah, it's not a strict first in, first out approach. It's more prioritizing. tiered approach, I would say, in the sense that they are trying to, I think they know they messed up and they're trying to get back in prioritizing rural projects because they do need to use the visas in that category. And as you said, Mona, earlier, that they've got this kind of superficial number out there on how much visas are being used in those categories.
But there is another thing. A few years ago, we heard that the way that USCIS was adjudicating cases was that they would wait for a project to accumulate a few cases and then one examiner would go in and he would do a handful of them. And we started seeing that because there was, especially where we have the whole projects, and we started seeing a trend in the way things were answered. There was the same kind of format. So you could see it was the same adjudicator who maybe did 10, 15 cases from that project, and then he would move on to the next one and the next one. So if they're doing that right now, then a lot of the TEA projects are ready to be adjudicated. And then they will go in and they will adjudicate a bunch of those, even if the first one was put in maybe a year ago, and then the most recent one just a few months ago.
Yeah. Well, I think now it's probably, if you have an I-956F approval, it will definitely, they will be looking at those cases and adjudicating those cases first in, first out basis.
Yeah. Rather than any case which went in where there's no F approval.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's news. That's really interesting. That's news for me. Thank you, guys. I always, every time when I have these kind of conversations, we speak to a lot of investors and they're like, look, I'm only going to file into an I-956F approved project. And the project has a track record in repayments. And sometimes they even only would invest in a project has a full audit report. And, should investors only choose projects with a track record, I-956, and also some audit reports?
So yes, track record is a real meaningful indicator, but it shouldn't be your only filter. It can create blind spots. We've seen excellent projects through a random developer who's just rented an RC. I think that you need to look at the project itself. You need to see whether the developer themselves have a background as opposed to the regional center's track record. It's always about that project.
Yeah. So you can have, we've seen this with, regional centers all the time, having multiple projects, but it doesn't necessarily mean that each and every one will be successful.
Okay, great. So look, there's a lot of people in the US that want to do EB-5. They don't have the capacity to do 800. So they want to start filing partially with 150, 200 to a stretch at 500, then 800, but they want to pay later. They're looking for these kind of projects. What would you say to them?
This is a very big question, Sam. We probably will come back to this and revisit this, but I'll let Rebecca give you a quick, concise overview.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, it needs planning. Partial investments right now are being scrutinized. So even though the law is that it has to be fully committed or you're in the process of committing, right? So even though it states that they have taken a hard stance, so there has to be proper planning, documentation. What is the reason that you're filing partially? You just can't say, well, I need, a future earnings. There has to be a reason as to why we're doing a partial filing. And kind of, showing that commitment, fully commit the funds to the project at a certain time period. Cool. So we look at all those factors before determining whether or not it would be a good case for partial filing.
So this makes your advice and, your job much difficult, right? That's why people have to start much early. They just think, I'll just do partial.
Yeah, no, it does. Because then you have to remember to go back. You have to do the interfiling. At times, and we've seen this, Mona, I can't tell you how many times we've seen this, where USCIS, we've submitted the interfiling and they didn't receive it. They lost it. They come back with a huge RFE. So we're re-answering again. So yeah, it becomes more of a headache.
Yeah, Sam, EB-5 is very different from other petitions that you do around the world. And it's quite often one of the most misunderstood as well. So thank you for bringing these questions to us. I think it was very helpful, and please keep gathering them and we'll be happy to do them again. Right, Rebecca?
Yes.
I can't thank you enough. These are very common questions and there's more advanced questions, and that would be people at a final stage. But look, thank you guys so much, because this really helps. And I want to share this out to, people that making inquiries. And if, we want to ask more questions, because there's more in-depth questions nowadays on the projects as well. And they want the attorneys to help them to, understand those setups and frameworks.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Global Investment Voice. A huge thank you to all our listeners for tuning in and sharing this journey with us. Curious about unlocking the potential of global migration and citizenship? Make sure to visit us online at mshallah.com and globalinvestmentvoice.com. Dive into our extensive library of podcast episodes. Stay ahead with the latest in migration news by signing up for our insider newsletter. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. Find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook to keep the conversation going. Remember, the insights shared in our podcast are for informational purposes only, so please seek tailored legal, financial, or investment advice where needed. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep investing smart and living well with Global Investment Voice. We'll see you on the next episode.